evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and I'm just letting you guys know right now that this is probably going to end up being one of those double upload situations where I end up uploading 2 videos on the same day, technically. I'm recording this at about 11 o'clock on June 30th, but it'll probably end up being up here on July 1st. Regardless, Injustice Gods Among Us, character, Overlook, Lego. We're going to actually be taking a look at the last character that I had missed from the original because of me doing one character at a time. You know, me focusing from the stream, it was Batman, then Superman, then Wonder Woman, then Green Lantern, then it was a couple of others. And I've been doing cleanup work mostly, because I already ended up doing the Joker, for instance. But the last guy there was just Sinestro. And running a poll on Twitter, I got an interesting winner. Hawkgirl. The thing about Hawkgirl is that she is probably the character you're going to see the least, because she is unusually complicated, and in this game she's low tier, and it's actually a situation where if you're low tier you're kind of in trouble. But we're going to start with Sinestro because he's got an interesting kit to start with. Just want to see if I'm missing anything real quick. Nope. Thing, blah, blah. Always start with this. Positive matter. Starts off a high. Not the fastest string in the world, but does but like most strings of this nature, standing combo. But not all the time. Notice, sometimes Fireball will miss. Usually Fireball will miss, which is very odd. So you usually have to go for an actual mid conversion of some kind. Sinful Thrive kind of launches the opponent, and while it does allow for combos, it's actually slightly weaker at 13% instead of 15% for this string because of the fact that the launcher is weaker. But you can see the hypotheticals there. Ego Trip does not combo, but is a high damage ender. You don't really get much off of it. This is just a quick ender for for no meter. So there, as an example. Yellow Element starts off of the same high, but throws in a tricky mid and overhead in there. The overhead knocks down, but your mid can be used to combo. Lost Will. Lost Will puts the opponent backwards and can be a sort of combo ender as well. Zero Compassion launches natively on the cheap, especially with another back one. But you gotta be careful. The damage scaling can be troublesome. The next series of strings will start with Devastating. Oh, I think, yeah, there we go. Devastating starts with a fairly quick mid that ends overhead. Although there is a mid that can send the opponent sliding back. I do believe the frame data is relative here. Let's see, the overhead on block is -10, whereas the mid is -5. So you're actually safer going for the mid, but on conversion you can do this and go for Oki. Fallen Hero is a brief overhead launcher that is just starts off of this, and then you hold back, another launcher situation. But remember, Sinestro doesn't have the greatest limb range without a little bit of help from some weaponry. Power Burn launches the opponent and kind of features him with a tricky low here, so you can go mid-low overhead, I think. Not really, but Oh, it doesn't even combo into back 3 after. So it's not the greatest string in the world, but it does get you quite a bit of distance. And also in Blackest Day, which somehow I missed in Blackest Day. There's a tricky low here, but I don't believe it actually comes out on block. If I were to have her block always. Okay, so it does come out on block at all times, but know where it comes out. At point blank range, it's gonna miss. But because you can dial in the string at range, you can kind of keep the opponent back with the swords. But because it's a low overhead mix-up, if you're willing to risk it with the bar, you could get an overhead conversion, but it's very risky because at the fastest, thrashing Hammerfest is 34 frames. So you need to be wary of that. It's not going to be an easy conversion. If you catch them with this, it's better to go for something else. But if they block it, then you'd be good to go. Special moves. Sinestro doesn't actually have a whole lot in the way of special moves in and of themselves. He has Fear Blast, which is a standard mid projectile. Kind of like Dr. Fate from Injustice 2. Kind of comes in at an angle. And I believe the opponent can actually duck it at close range. But the further back you go... Yeah, see? The opponent can duck it until about this range. Oh. Yeah, it's only really a mid at full screen. Once he's about here, it's actually a high. Until he meter burns it, then it becomes a true mid. So, getting in on Sinestro's zoning is actually relatively easy. This might look like a mid, but really treat it most of the time like a high, and you should be just fine. What isn't a mid is the overhead impact event. There's a distinct sound cue because of the fact that this is a true overhead and you need to pay attention. And when I not amplify, this will OTG and send the opponent backwards. Now in the corner, you might be thinking, could I get a combo off of this? I'm just gonna find the option to actually do that. And you're not getting a combo raw with this thing. But if you do manage to connect this in the corner, you get a pretty easy combo conversion. Arachnid Sting is what I've been using. This thing is no combo extender, despite how it looks. It's a combo ender. And on Amplify, which can only be amplified on hit, not even... You almost have to amplify it right away, otherwise it's not going to work. Arachnid Sting is a tricky move. Yeah, what is technically an unblockable, but remember, this isn't coming out unless you're hitting the opponent right away. So this is your full screen conversion. Axe of Terror only works in the air. If you are... It's a mid, although it looks like a low, and it does launch the opponent at close range. So that if you get in close, and... I'm right words here. If you get in close with, say, a jump in and then land Axe of Terror, you get a combo going. Final Shackles is what you get when you perform the input on the ground. It restrains the opponent as you would expect, but not for very long. So, use this for your combo conversions. But be mindful that it's a low. This isn't going to hit anybody that isn't fairly close to the ground. But at full screen, this can be helpful because this is a tracking projectile. So, if you got your zoning going, you can use Impact Event. And, with the right timing, catch them with Final Shackle. Now, I'm not great at this, But you see what I mean? You can do Impact Defense, Final Shackles, and continue a combo from full screen. Granted, that costs 2 bar for only 23% because scaling on this is rough. But still a combo, still from full screen, and you're still trapping opponents, giving you, if not a free impact event, which it can give you a free impact event if you're quick enough. But if your timing's not great, definitely a free fireball. And if you're wondering what happens if you do it twice, it just trips for no damage. So not worth doing twice. It's no damage like if you free somebody twice at Sub-Zero. The trait for Sinestro is quite frankly not great. What you have to do is you have to build up energy, which by the way, this is faster now than it used to be. So it's actually better than it was before. Now Sinestro has a little construct assist that hovers around him. Once it's fully charged, he gets 3 shots that hit mid before it goes away. So you can do stuff like this. Hold on. Let's see. I can do stuff like this. Do this right. Get a full combo. Now, one of the safest ways to get this built is actually to trap an opponent full screen and then go for it. Especially if the opponent in question doesn't actually have a projectile, then you can build this up safely, and now you have a free, safe-ish zoning tool that can kind of combo into itself, but not always. Sinestro's Might is his super move, and it's a mid with deceptively good range, just under half screen. And there you go, 35% damage relatively easily. And allows for combos. This probably isn't even the best super move combo that you can do, but this is just an example. Not worth it for 40%, but again, that's why you gotta be careful with Fear Shackles. Next up, we have Hawkgirl. And this is a very tricky character to figure out because she's an oddball. A lot of her strings don't inherently make sense, at least to me, and a lot of people that I've seen on Injustice have tried to play Hawkgirl and tried to figure out what the hell does she do. One thing you'll notice is that she has great jumps. She has really good air mobility, and while she doesn't have an air dash, her trait really exemplifies it. Morning Star is just a quick string, knocks the opponent back, and you can get stuff off of it. You can even get certain interactables off it, I believe. Well, you're not going to get the engine, but you're definitely going to get the toolbox off. Or not. Never mind. Mace Maximum throws into mid and is a native pop-up. This can loop into itself, but the gravity gets tricky by about loop 3. So, but if a string can loop into itself, you know it's a good combo extender or starter. Birds of Prey. Oops. Knocks the opponent back and acts as your damage version of Mace Maximum. Knocks the opponent back, get a little bit of damage. Crashing Nth starts with a mid boot that, while you're not going to get anything mid-screen outside of the corner because she doesn't exactly have the greatest buttons in the world, finishing this string gets more damage, and oh wait, it doesn't special cancel. Never mind. I thought you could special cancel it, but you cannot. So this is just an ender more than anything. Betrayal is nothing to sneeze at, despite the fact that it's only a 2-hit string. It's a quick converter and allows for actually fairly easy damage off of a really fast high. Tactical Strike is similar, but the links are tighter and it scales harder, so you need to be wary of that with Tactical Strike. Thanagarian Strength knocks the opponent back pretty far, and it has an overhead in the middle. So you know what that means. Gotta be careful with your crouch blocking. The old ones is a quick mid-low that looks deceptively similar to Thanagarian Strength, but just with a little more range. And it even has its own mix in and of itself with Golden Age, which allows for, in the corner at least, combos. Not the greatest combos in the world, but combos nonetheless. Bloody War only connects off of the first hit and knocks the opponent full screen, which is not exactly where you want to be with Hawkgirl. If you are too late, you only get 10%, because you cannot get it after the second hit. You can only get it on the first hit. Just gonna make sure I'm not missing anything, which I don't believe I am. Excellent. Okay, that should be enough for now. Mace Charge. I've been using this to end most of the combos, and that's because it's a ridiculously ranged attack, damaging attack in its own right. This is 13%. Launchers don't do this much damage, so you can see why I've been ending combos with this a lot, especially when it comes to heavier hitting strings like back 2-3. The danger factor is real with Mace Charge, especially on Amplify, where you can get an easy 21%. Oh yeah, there it is. So, look at that, 1 bar, 34% in the corner. Nightwing. Hawkgirl can get some damage. Mace Toss is a delayable mid-projectile, although it looks like it's actually a high as well. That's the thing about the practice mode in this game. You have to actually go in and see, because otherwise, things that look like they say are mids, otherwise are not. They're actually just straight up highs. On Amplify, when it hits, you get a shoulder tackle. It doesn't have the greatest, it doesn't actually follow all the way, but if you amplify before it, you get a good shoulder tackle to knock the opponent down. Air Mace Toss cannot be delayed and is straight, but is a good way of catching opponents trying to jump over your zone. And like the normal Mace Toss, you can actually amplify it. The downward trajectory means that you gotta be careful to space your jumps, but once you space it out, you can get an overhead that does 10% and knocks the opponent back some for more Mace Charge shenanigans, if you didn't do a Mace Toss beforehand. Downward Mace acts similarly, but again, is air to surface, so so Hawkgirl's got the air covered with this projectile, you'll notice, but that's not all. Mace Charge can be done in the air, and if you get your instant airs down, you can have a ridiculously fast attack. Compare doing it on the ground to doing it as an instant air, and that wasn't even instant. If you get good with instant airs with Hawkgirl, you can get insane conversions in the air with Mace Charge for high damage, because this is still a 13% mid, even in the air. Heavenward Stomp is an air exclusive, not quite a it's more so a normal than a special, but it's a 9% damaging overhead, instant air with this, and you get a stupid fast overhead. Borderline unreactable. That knocks down, as opposed to standard aerial attacks. But That's one of the other tricky things with Hawkgirl too. With her funky jump angles, she gets very odd conversions. You have to almost space it out. You almost have to space it out differently than most other characters because she has such odd jump ranges that you almost have to back up a little bit to practice this. But 31% 1 bar, not in the corner, not bad. Then there's wing evade. This is kind of like Batgirl's evade that we covered before, but you get anti-air, which is a very odd thing to have here. A fast overhead that I believe allows you for combos, yeah. And a big boot that covers a lot of distance and can even knock the opponent back to the corner in just a couple applications of it. Especially if you can get a tricky cross-up on them. But we're not quite done yet. Because now I gotta talk about her trait. It's called Soaring Hawk, and Sindel fans, this is what Regal Presence really should be like. It's a kind of stance that lets Hawkgirl fly and stay in the air for a really long time. Not forever, but a really long time. And those of you who played Spectral Ermac in Mortal Kombat X would also will recognize its mobility. Note the air mobility that she has. It's almost insane with this move. From full screen, no problem. She can fly and cover from full screen all the way to the corner and then some before having to touch the ground. The air mobility Hawkgirl has is unrivaled with this. Sure, we have characters with air dashes, double jumps, but nobody can fly like Hawkgirl can. And that's where she excels. That's why her jumps are so high, because she can land this and then cancel into things like this. The double kick. Now the thing about Soaring Hawk is that it's not quite as good as Spectral Ermac in terms of what you can get. But you can launch, and while I don't think necessarily you can cancel into anything, this is a good way to knock opponents down and then get some Oki. And there is actually a combo you can do out of Soaring Hawk, because Mace Jab, Flip Kick, and Double Kick, which does a huge amount of damage and knocks back, by the way, can chain into itself, allowing for a 21% combo that knocks the opponent back pretty far, and technically is just out of Mace Charge's range, but not out of range of things like her Mace Toss, or, again, if you're really good with anti-airs, with instant airs, instant air Mace Charge, especially off of a forward charge, oof, you're catching somebody with that and it's going to be a lot of damage. So, then you can even move forward and do Heavenward Stomp out of it to safely come to the ground. So she's a very odd character because her whole gimmick is being really good in the air. But once she's in the air, and once she kind of asserts her dominance in the air, the opponent doesn't want to jump. They never want to jump, they never want to get too close, because otherwise they're going to get clobbered with a Mace Charge or a Mace Toss, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, you can angle upwards by holding up to catch somebody. Her uppercut actually has relatively decent range for this too. And on the ground, she has surprisingly damaging normals. So she's kind of about being in your face and controlling the air. But if you can zone her out, because her projectile's not that great, let's be honest. It's just throwing the... It only really helps her get in if she has bar. And then she has to use the Oki to her advantage because of her really good ground dash. Now she's in your face. Her super move, which I can never remember for the life of me what it's called, the Power of Nth, will not hit full screen. So don't bust this out as an armored get in like the Flash or Superman. But it gets you very, very close regardless. So if one were, let's say, a dash in from full screen. Catches you with an overhead. An overhead that hits like a truck for 36% damage. You can even get it off. Might of Thanagar. You catch them with this, it's good night. This should do over 45%. No, I'm mistaken. 42. Still really good damage. Not bad on its own. Now let's talk about the stages real fast. About this stage. Ferris Aircraft is one of a couple of stages that doesn't actually have any stage transitions. Neither on the left or the right will you get any stage transitions, so be mindful of that. The jet engine hanging here. Oh, by the way, both of these characters are power characters. Hawkgirl and Sinestro both have. Oh, she kind of hits the top of the skybox if she were to jump the new tree. That's good to know. What was this thing? Oh yes! Oh yes! Unblockable and can launch, but you've got to be mindful of the fact that you've got to go really far for it. It doesn't really launch for power or for gadget or acrobat characters because they swing in. Treat this as like a really big aerial Okizeme and then you should be fine. Toolbox! Unblockable projectile. Power and gadget characters will swirl it around and throw it. Power characters just don't care. Pick it up and throw it. Gadget characters can make this missile explode overhead here, and acrobat characters can dive off of it. Power characters, voila. I don't remember exactly what power or gadget character or what gadget and acrobat characters do with this. I believe they swing it, but power characters, no. Power characters swing this thing and can turn it into a projectile as well. But there's only 3 of them in the entire stage, so you got to be mindful of that. And then this missile bay. You slam the terminal if you don't have super strength, or you just pick up the missiles. The missiles will reload after a short time, allowing you to zone from the corner, doing lots of damage if your opponent is not careful. Before we go, I just want to switch over to Batman just to see what a non-acrobat character does with it, because I don't believe they swing it.
Batman, the Joker.
But I don't know off the top of my head, so I gotta go have a look. Okay, so it is the same, regardless. Oh, it even does become a projectile. That's really good to know. But that's all you have to know about Ferris Aircraft, Hawkgirl, and Sinestro. Don't forget to be awesome, folks, and I'll see you guys on the other side.